Welcome back to the channel.
Today we are doing our Awkward Chats podcast preview for you guys.
And it's all about moving, and we're going to give you some tips from two experts who have moved across the country at least 10 times.
So come get lost with us.
If you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe. Welcome back.
Yeah, so we are going to delve into our top tips and tricks and just like things in general to think about when you're making a move, whether it's local or cross country. So we're going to get it started.
So if you're listening to us on our podcast, then you're going to keep listening to us. But if you're listening to us on YouTube, we've had a whole discussion about moving and some of our stories and things to look out for already. So definitely look for us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast. Check us out at Awkward Chats. Mm-hmm. But as for the list, let's get to it.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things if you are moving cross country and you want to use movers is 100% don't use a broker. Don't use a broker. Because what the broker does is he basically gets your deal for, I don't know, let's say $3,000. And then he has $3,000 to basically work with, and he's going to go with the cheapest of the cheap, which is how our stuff ended up going from one truck to another truck to another truck, which we talk about more earlier in the podcast. So if you guys have been listening, thank you for still being here. But if you guys want to see it, just go back a little bit on the podcast. So don't use a broker because they will sub out to the lowest bidder and your stuff is going to come back ruined. They could take you for highway robbery. It's just not recommended. There are legitimate moving companies out there. They do cost a significant amount of money, but it may be worth it to utilize them. But again, just make sure you're not using a broker.
Yeah, in comparison, that's not really that much more. It is typically more, though. The broker, just a little sort of like short clip, because we've already talked about this at length. Basically, what they do is if, like, say, United is moving someone from like Miami to Atlanta, and they have some open space on their truck, the broker will then buy that space and put your stuff into that space. But if your stuff isn't going to Atlanta, they're going to dump it off in a field somewhere around Atlanta that another truck is going to pick it up on. And they basically have to find another truck going from that Atlanta area to somewhere else closer to you're going to. And it could switch 4 or 5 times on the way there.
Yep.
So that's why brokers are not the way. You need to make sure that whatever company you use has their own trucks, has their own people. And when they load it onto a truck, that truck is going to deliver it to your house. Mm-hmm. Now, the broker that we had said that was going to happen, and that was a blatant lie. So just know they will lie to you. But that is something that you really should try to look forward and ask for if you are moving, especially across state lines.
And I do think legally they have to tell you if they're a broker or not.
Yes.
So that is a question to ask, which I did not know to ask at the time, but that is a question to start your conversation off with, is to ask them, are you a broker?
Yep.
So that can get you through a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing is, one, like, know your rights. And what we mean by know your rights is know your contract that you're getting into. And then 2, know the rights that you have as somebody who is paying someone to move your goods. Whether it's within a state, you have more rights versus interstate, which is crossing state lines and going into another state. And there you don't necessarily lose your rights, but it becomes harder to enforce your rights.
You lose them. Yeah, you lose them. Because then there has to be a compromise between the states. So like if you're in California, you have more laws protecting you. But if they move you to Nevada from California, you have neither of those laws. You don't have Nevada's laws or California's. It goes to the federal level, which is even less.
So consider that when you're going into it, and definitely read through your contract. And while we knew what our contract said and what was allowed, we still got bit in the ass. But knowing what we know now, looking back on it, I think we would have done things differently.
Yes. I think that's a big thing. And another piece that sort of goes along with that contract is find out how much they're going to reimburse you for the stuff. Are they going to reimburse you for your actual stuff, or are they going to reimburse you by weight? If they're going to be reimbursing you by weight, you need to find another moving company, because that means they destroy a ton of stuff and they don't want to pay. So what it means by weight is basically like if I destroy your $3,000 Cartier watch, right, in this move, you're entitled to about 62 cents because it's going to be way less than a pound. And it's typically about 60 cents a pound is what they'll give you. So imagine all that jewelry and stuff is going to weigh maybe 2 pounds. You might get $1.20 back from them.
Yep.
And you're going to be like, well, I wouldn't ship my Cartier watch with a mover. Then how are you going to get it there? Like, we have the same idea, but you can't take everything. That's why you have to hire a mover. If they're not going to do it, what's the point of hiring them?
Now, they will also try to upsell you on insurance that protects more of you. But from all the research I've done, that is mostly a scam.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, you have to get a third-party insurance. But again, if they aren't offering you anything, you shouldn't be using them. That's, correct, again, a huge red flag.
So next tip I would say is...
Two. So another thing to think about is if the terms of the contract change.
Yeah, if the terms of the contract change at any point, you should just stop.
Yes.
Pause. Possibly seek legal counsel at that point. Because if you continue to proceed, it's not going to get better. Yeah. It's probably going to get worse.
So a short from our story that if you're listening on the podcast, you've already heard, but for the YouTube viewers that are seeing this as a preview, basically what happened is one of the things that happened to us was the contract we signed said that they would take credit cards. Then they called the next day to get the payment, and they no longer took credit cards. They just wanted money orders.
Even though the contract specifically stated that they would. We went through a whole lot of rigmarole. They finally admitted that, yes, it was there, but they weren't going to honor it.
Yes.
And at that point, looking back, this is why I say I would have done things differently, is I would have put a stop to it, and I probably would have sought legal counsel at that point because it hadn't left the state yet. According to the moving company, it was in Miami. And we probably would have been able to get our money back and get our stuff back without having to fork over as much money as we did and end up in the situation that we did.
Right.
And maybe have salvaged some furniture.
So be cautious again. If you're moving, the terms change. Be super cautious about that. And this applies to local moves as well as interstate moves. But if they're interstate, you need to be overly cautious because, again, once you leave a state, you lose all protections from that state.
And they can hold your stuff for ransom like pirates. And they will.
And they do. And they use that too. They use that to their advantage.
Which brings us into our next point, which is fear. Like, you really, don't let them walk all over you and push you into a corner and be fearful because you have more power in the beginning, and that's usually where the red flags are going to pop up is in the beginning, and they will hold your stuff for ransom and make you feel like you are helpless and useless and there's nothing you can do. Yeah,
something to look out for too. When we talk about lying, if you talk to them on the phone, you ask if they're a broker, ask who's going to come to pick up the stuff, get the name of the company. If they show up and you hire a company like we did called Roadrunner, and they show up with a different moving company van, you need to stop it right there because they're a broker. You need to stop it right there. They lied to you. You need to stop it right there. Don't proceed further. Don't listen to anything. They'll be like, oh, our truck was down or something was damaged. That's what they told us, which was a lie. It was just a blatant lie to get your stuff. And once they have your stuff, they like to hold it hostage. So that's where you need to be upfront and make sure that you trust yourself and not be afraid to stop them.
And they'll try to be fake nice, and they'll try to be like, well, we're going to work with you here.
Yeah, it's always we're going to look at it.
Same thing with the whole like, oh, well, this is going to be more space than what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's
a common thing with brokers.
Yes, with brokers, 100%. Every story that we read, post, as well as some of the pre ones, is they'll always quote you a size, and it's always going to be over. So your best bet with that is, again, don't use brokers. That's your best bet. But if you have to use a broker, try not to leave the state. So at least you have some recourse. If you can't do that, then you have to put it on a credit card because otherwise you're not going to get any money when they damage your stuff. You need to accept that ahead of time. But if you want to get at least what you paid them back, you need to do it on a credit card so you can do that.
Yep.
The next tip is sort of a more positive tip towards moving companies. We're sorry we're hating on you a little bit today, but We've seen what some horrible moving companies
We've
do
seen
and
the
take
bad
advantage of
side.
you. Hire movers to move stuff in and out of your trucks. So even if you rent like a budget truck or a U-Haul, hire movers to get the boxes out of your house and into the truck, and then out of the truck and into your new place.
It's worth it. And it usually doesn't cost more than a couple $100 with tip, typically. And more often than not, we have had people who rise to the occasion and do a great job. They always do a good job. Sometimes they take longer.
Well, we had one in Orlando that broke a bunch of stuff and dropped it outside. So it can't happen. The sub tips to that are schedule them early in the day. Make sure you're their first appointment. Check to see if they have anything afterwards, because if they do, that means they're going to be extra quick because they want to get to the other place. If they don't have anything or they schedule at the end of the day, try to get a different date, because then they're just going to milk it for money. They don't have anywhere else to go. They have an open end of their day, and they're just going to try to make as much money off of you as possible.
So, and also too, ask if they're going to bring the stuff to wrap your furniture and stuff, because that also can tell you if they're a professional mover or not, because they should bring blankets and they should bring stuff to wrap your stuff.
Yeah, and plastic wrap is a savior.
Especially if it's a local move. If it's a long distance move and they're just packing it to for you to take it somewhere to another state, they may not include blankets, but they should include the plastic wrap to kind of keep your drawers together and stuff like that.
And if they're professionals, they'll ask you, do you have blankets or whatever that I can add on to this? If they don't ask you that, again,
probably not a professional.
Yeah. The bonus tip that I just kind of wanted to add to this is trust your gut.
Yeah.
Trust your feelings. If you feel like something's off, stop it immediately.
That's been our biggest thing, I think, in life, learning as an adult, like learning to adult, just in general, is us trusting our gut. Because we always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I'm looking too much into this. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems. But more often than not, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be.
Yep, exactly.
So trust your gut.
We knew when he came to pick up the stuff and he didn't accept payment that day.
That it was going to be
We knew
bad.
something was off, but we're like, nah, it'll probably work out. I'm sure they're just going to call us tomorrow and we'll pay them. But deep down, we talked about it after they left too. And even before they left, we're like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, do you sure you want to let them have our stuff?
Like, should we just call them and have them bring it back?
Yeah. Or not even let them go because he was still there.
Like, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Like, we can still figure it out at this point. Like, because even when they were, like, we were literally sitting on the couch and they were like, we can't take this. We looked at each other and like, okay, well, do we want to just tell them to take it all off the truck?
Well, and one of the huge red flags, by the way, looking back at it, we didn't really catch it in the moment, and we probably should have, is that the tip for the first guy who picked it up, he wanted us to tip him through like an app because we didn't have enough cash. So we're like, oh, we'll just tip when we pay on the credit card. Oh no, you can tip me like this. And he had an app, so he could accept a tip, but he couldn't accept the payment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go with your gut.
Trust your gut. Had we trusted our gut, we
with
wouldn't
your
have fallen in
gut.
that situation.
And you know, we learn these life lessons, and hopefully you don't have to go through the same thing. Hopefully, while I never wish bad on me or anybody else, hopefully our experience can help somebody in the future not make the same mistake, or at least help them navigate if they're stuck in a situation.
And to remember too, give yourself extra time. Like, don't make it so that everything is last minute. Like the movers are coming the day you leave, because if that happens, and then they'll try to pressure you into things, you don't have as much push room. You can't be like, just leave, I'll hire somebody else, because they're the only people you're going to be able to get. So like, there's a lot of things that if you have extra time, you make sure to plan out ahead, you trust your guts, hopefully you'll get a good scenario. And if you have, let us know in those comments below. We'd love to hear about your positives, because we've had so many bad ones and so few good ones.
Yeah. So like this move that's coming up, honestly, once we get the rest of our boxes packed and our suitcase packed with what clothes we're going to take, I can literally have the pod people come.
We're going to do that, yeah. And they're just going to take it. And it'll probably be like a week ahead of time. Then we can clean the place out and then be ready to go.
Because we're not taking the mattress. So, and we're just planning on wrapping that up and putting it by the curb.
Yep.
And the bed frame, I'll probably throw on the curb too, because it's just a bunch of metal bracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, just give yourself enough time so you can feel like you've got enough time to prepare and plan. And the other thing too, what's nice about doing it like a week ahead is like, okay, so if we run out of space, I have enough time to get a bigger pod if I need to.
Yeah.
Or I can repack some things and make some adjustments and figure some stuff out, because you never really realize how much stuff you have in your house until you start taking it out.
Yep, exactly. And putting it somewhere else.
And you're like, where did this come from?
Yep.
You start opening drawers and you're like, where did this come from? So, yeah. So just be prepared. Give yourself time. Be patient.
Prepared.
Be kind to yourself too, because moving is stressful.
Yes.
Whether you're moving across town or across country, it's stressful, and you need to give yourself the patience to navigate it. And it's interesting. TikTok today was talking about a lot of match day people who are, physicians getting out of medical school, matching. And the biggest thing I hear is people talking about how they're going to move to a city they've never been to before, that they know nobody in, to do their residency. And they're like, it's scary. And I just sit back and I think, I'm like, yeah, it's scary, but you can do it.
Yeah, we've done it 3 times.
We've done it a lot. And it's always a little scary and nerve-wracking going to a place you don't know anything about. But the best thing to remember is that it's just a city. It's just a city, just different people, different streets. And you'll learn your way around. You'll get a groove. You'll get a thing. And if you give yourself patience and time, it should be a rather smooth move.
Yeah, so that's all for this week's Awkward Chat and for the YouTube preview.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with us. I know I did.
And if you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And ring that notification bell so you get notified of at least 3 videos a week.
And we'll come and get you guys for the next one.
Ain't that the truth, baby Ruth? And to all you beautiful people on the podcast listen to us, we appreciate your love.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.